It's time to lock in. We're talking SEC, college football, and more. This is AP as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about that action.
I'm AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama. This is AP as we see it, a weekly syndicated 1-hour show discussing the Southeastern Conference, college football, and the national scene, and keeping an eye on other sports. Welcome to another edition of AP as we see it. We like to direct our audience to our social media platforms on YouTube, AP as we see it. That's our video broadcast each week. And then we're also archived on Spotify at AP as we see it. We have our Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts at AP as we see it, and my personal one at AP Stedham as well. So you can check out those links on those social media platforms that will direct you to our show, all the interviews that we conduct at different events that we travel around the country and cover each year and each month and each week and each day. So you can check those links out as well. But we'd like to welcome our audience, and we also like to welcome our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the Gulf Coast for over 100 years and beyond in this region. Remember that family, friends, and football. We also mentioned basketball at this juncture of the year. Those are winning traditions at Greer's, where you can score big savings on fresh meats and produce and more for your game day spreads. And if you can't make it to one of the 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, check out the groceries to go online. You could have those items delivered to your home, your office, the venue of your choice. Remember now, they have the coloring contest for the children. They also have Lucy's Famous Recipes online in her book. You can purchase that as well. And all your special occasions, your birthdays, your anniversaries, your Mardi Gras, anything that where you're having a party, you want to invite your friends and your family, remember to check out Greer's, those 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi. And you can go to that groceries to go online and have those things delivered to you as well. You can check the weekly ads for the specials, and remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. So let's get on with the show. This week, we usually start during basketball season with the Associated Press, the weekly poll. This is week 16, and that comes out early in the week. So looking at the top, we'll look at the top 5 just to give you a spin around the country. It's Duke at number 1, Arizona number 2, Michigan number 3, Arizona, Iowa State, Arizona number 2, Michigan number 3, Iowa State number 4, Houston number 5, and then the teams in the SEC that made the poll this week: Florida's at number 7. Alabama's number 17, Arkansas number 20, Tennessee number 22, and Vanderbilt number 25. And Texas A&M, they received 3 votes as well, but didn't make the top 25. If you look at what the NCAA does at this time of the year, they have an NCAA reveal by the selection committee. This is the projected top 16 teams in their rankings in the regions 1 through 4. We'll find that Florida is a number 3 in one region, and Vanderbilt is a number 4 in another region. Alabama and Arkansas were the first teams out of that 16 group of 16. And looking at by conference, the Big Ten had 5, the Big 12 had 5, and the SEC had just 2. But I think, like we said, I think the SEC will probably get 10 teams, 11 teams, 9, 10, or 11 teams in the NCAA tournament for the March Madness for the men's basketball. We also look at on the women's side, we have the poll week 16. We'll look at the top 5 here, and also the SEC teams. Of course, UConn at number 1, UCLA at number 2. We have South Carolina number 3, Texas number 4, Vanderbilt number 5. We also have LSU at number 6, Oklahoma number 7, Kentucky 16, Ole Miss number 19, Georgia number 23, and Alabama at number 24. So we have that's 9 teams we have in the women's side that have made this top 25, the Associated Press poll, 9 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 9 teams. Now, the reveal for the women's was done on the 14th of February. We just tell you those again. I think we did that last week's show as well, but they had South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Remember that name, Vanderbilt, at the moment. Vanderbilt and South Carolina were number 1 seeds. Texas and LSU were number 2 seeds. And Ole Miss and Oklahoma were number 4 seeds. So the next reveal for the women's will be on March 1st. If you notice that name, Vanderbilt, I mentioned that because of the Sweet 16 teams listed by the NCAA reveal selection committees for the men's and the women, only Vanderbilt, and think about that for a second, only Vanderbilt has a team on the women's side and the men's side. And I think that's pretty special that of all the SEC teams, of course, there's only 2 on the men's side, Florida and Vanderbilt. And then, of course, on the women's side, it's 6 teams, but only Vanderbilt has the team on the men's side and the women's side in the NCAA selection committee reveal. So I just find that quite extraordinary. We don't think of Vanderbilt, but they're coming alive with their football program, as we saw last season, the men's basketball, the women's basketball. We know they're getting baseball through the years. So the Vanderbilt, it's a golden age for them. They're flourishing. The Commodores anchor down. They're having fantastic seasons with their athletic programs under their athletic director, Candace Story. So we want to salute them and send them a lot of kudos for what they've done with their athletic programs in this NIL era. They've really done a magnificent job in selecting players and funding their athletic programs through this NIL. We also want to make mention of 2 particular hires in football. I know there's always changes with assistant coaches and staffing and analysts and things, but I think it's worth noting that the University of Texas, they brought back Will Muschamp to be the defensive coordinator. We know he was a defensive coordinator for Mack Brown. He was a coach in waiting. He left, became the head coach at Florida and South Carolina, and then he was on the Georgia staff as well. These last few years, took some time off, but he's back in college football as the defensive coordinator at one of the Blue Bloods, the University of Texas, under Steve Sarkisian. So I think that's something that we're going to watch. We're highly anticipating how his defensive prowess as a coordinator will help the Longhorns get back to the playoffs, because they're all in, especially when you have Arch Manning on the offensive side. They're trying to equal that coaching on the defensive side and be one of the tops in the country as well. The other one we want to mention is at the University of Tennessee. Josh Heupel made the playoffs 2 years ago, primarily because of the defense and the running game. They were exceptional on those 2 phases of their football program. They brought in Jim Knowles. And they say, Jim Knowles, well, you recognize that name. He was the defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes when they won the national championship 2 years ago. He made the move for about $3 million to Penn State. We know what happened there. James Franklin was relieved of his duties, but I think that's another 5-star hire with Jim Knowles as your defensive coordinator. Had quite a few transfers, and we're going to discuss Jim Knowles as a defensive coordinator. We're going to mention our guest, segment 2. We're going to have Robby Baker. Robby is the Fox10 Sports anchor and reporter out in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. He's also the host and the executive producer of the Arizona State University All Access. And the reason we're having Robby on our show is because he covered Sam Leavitt. And we know Sam Leavitt has made the transfer to LSU. He was a highly priced and sought after quarterback in the transfer portal, and Lane Kiffin won that contest reportedly for about $4 million. They're paying Sam Leavitt. So we want to have Robby, who covered Sam Leavitt for a couple of years out in Tempe, Arizona. He's a friend of the show. Robby was here in Mobile at the TV station. So we're bringing him on as one of our guests. He'll be in segment 2. And then segment 3, we're going to have Paige Dauer. She's with Full Disclosure Production. She covers the University of Tennessee. We're going to discuss their quarterback situation, because we know that Joey Aguilar, the judge, ruled against his plea to earn another year of eligibility eligibility. So he's on to the NFL. So that's a wide. Well, it's not. I don't think it's totally wide open, and Paige will explain that. Um, with the number of quarterbacks that are eligible, and you probably recognize some of those names and when she is our guest in segment 3 and 4. So, but Tennessee is a team trying to get back to the playoffs. They made that move with Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, as I mentioned, under Josh Heupel, and I think the seat's getting a little bit warm for him in Knoxville. But I think he's he's put himself in a good position. They're poised to have a comeback season, I believe, if their quarterback situation is resolved satisfactorily and the defense can come alive again under the direction of Jim Knowles, the former defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes in their national championship season a couple of years ago, and also at Penn State. So, but anyway, we're going to come back with our segment 2 guest, Robby Baker of Fox 10 Sports, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, to discuss the quarterback, Sam Levitt, who made the transfer to LSU, and all the pressure will be on Lane Kiffin because he's the transfer portal king. And plus, you have all those high school players per capita. Louisiana is one of the tops in America. So we'll be back right after these messages with AP as we see it.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with AP as we see it, and our very special guest, a friend of the show, a friend for a while now, having himself lived in L.A., Lower Alabama, Robby Baker, the Fox 10 sports anchor, reporter, and he's also the host and executive producer for the Arizona State University All Access Report. Hey, Robby, welcome to AP as we see it.
Yeah, good to see AP. It's like old times, right? When I was down there on the WKRG airwaves in Lower Alabama.
Sure was. But yeah, I know you're enjoying time there. You're Arizona State graduate in Phoenix, so that's awesome for you that you had a chance to return to your alma mater. That's tremendous for you. But all these SEC people, Robby, they're spending money like they own Fort Knox, and I guess they decided to reach out to the Arizona State and capture that quarterback, Sam Levitt. This is his third school. Michigan State is a freshman, Arizona State the last 2 years. So what do you like to tell people about Big Sam as a quarterback?
Yeah, the Sam Levitt kind of saga in Tempe was interesting. Kind of flew really close to the sun, if you will, with his first season here. It was his first season as a starting quarterback. He came from Michigan State, where he didn't really play much, came to Tempe, bought into Kenny Dillingham's vision, and helped take that team to the SEC or the Big 12 championship and ultimately the Peach Bowl, where they were a controversial targeting call away from potentially beating Texas and advancing to the semifinals of the college football playoff. But it was an incredible first year in Tempe for Sam Levitt. And then there was a full offseason buildup of Heisman talk and maybe, a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And then there was, people thought maybe there was a chance that he and Jordan Tyson could both be first round draft picks in April's NFL draft. Things panned out the way people thought for Jordan Tyson. Things didn't quite go the way people thought for Sam Levitt for a number of reasons. I think even Sam mentioned at different points before he got hurt that maybe all of the Heisman hype, maybe all of the stuff throughout the offseason probably wasn't the best for him. He kind of likes being the underdog. I think the phrase he used is he liked being made in the mud and coming out of the mud. And that's why he liked that original team, the first year with Scadaboo and everybody, that team was counted out and left for dead, and they ended up doing what they did. And last year, maybe some of the press clippings, if you will, and stuff wasn't the best thing for Sam Levitt, per what he told us. But then also you got to factor in the injury. Suffered a foot injury. He played through it through various games, and then ultimately against, I believe it was Houston, was the game that he broke a long run, got tackled again, and went to the locker room. And that was, at the time, we didn't know that was the last time we were going to see Sam Levitt wearing an ASU uniform, and turns out it was. And started to get rumblings near the end of the season that okay, maybe Sam Levitt was going to be uh, entertaining the transfer portal. He kind of poo-pooed it, and then there was the report that he ended up not attending the team end of the year banquet. And shortly after that, then he enters the transfer portal. But I mean, I think the maybe at the time he entered the transfer portal, I think ASU fans maybe felt a certain way about it. But I think with time and seeing how things played out and just the way college football is just, it is, I mean, you guys know, especially in the SEC, it is just a different world. 4 or 5 years ago, this doesn't happen.
No.
This is the norm now. I mean, talking to people at Arizona State, it's kind of kind of expect people to stay for 1 to 2 years now. I mean, you don't really recruit people to have them for 3 or 4 years anymore. So ASU had Sam Levitt for 2 years. That's kind of the track life for, what this is. And now he gets the opportunity to be Lane Kiffin's quarterback in his inaugural season at LSU.
Mm. Uh, Robbie, what are some of the attributes as a passer? And then he also ran for that year in 2024, 400 yards. So we know that he can run. So what about his passing? How would you describe him as a passer and as a runner?
Oh, he's both of those things. I mean, he definitely I would say he at times early on as a starter, as any kind of running quarterback, he maybe used his legs more than he should, if you will. It was kind of his crux, break out of the pocket and run. But also his first year he had Camp Scattaboo. So a lot of the time it was
Yeah.
pretty easy to, hey, we need 3 or 4 yards, hand it to the big, bulldozer behind you, and he's going to make it happen.
Right.
I think the one maybe knock that and I'm not, I mean, I'm no draft expert, but one thing that stood
Yes.
out to me throughout this season was ASU was never really able to develop a second wide receiver consistently to Jordan Tyson, really throughout most of the season, but especially when Sam was starting. A lot of their offense was, and understandably, because Jordan Tyson is probably going to be a top 5 pick in the draft, but a lot of their offense was Jordan Tyson's down there somewhere. I'm just going to throw it. And 80% of the time it worked. But some of the
Yes.
reason they ended up losing to Mississippi State and they started slow against some schools like TCU and stuff was because the offense just wasn't ever in a rhythm because it was a lot of, it seemed like Sam from just a layman's perspective was very locked on Jordan Tyson. It was, and they had a great connection, but they never seemed like the offense opened up as much this year. But that could be a number of factors. They never, obviously, Cam Scattaboo wasn't there this year, and
Right.
perhaps the secondary wide receiver talent wasn't as talented as we thought in the offseason. But that would maybe be the one thing is maybe he working on his progression and reading the different route trees and stuff. But the other thing you have to factor if you're an LSU fan is. I mean, this is what Lane Kiffin does, right? I mean, Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo develop
Yes.
quarterbacks. They have the track record with Bo Nix, being the latest and greatest coming out of their
Yes.
programs. But Lane Kiffin does it too. I mean, look what he just did with Trinidad Chambliss and stuff. So he seems like Sam's going to be in good hands.
Yes. Sam, is he a vocal leader? Robbie, is he like to lead by example?
I think a little bit of both. I think that's probably some of the stuff that he learned and grew this year too. Is again that first year when he was here, Scattaboo was the leader of Arizona State. I mean, I know
He
Michael
was.
Crow's
He
the
sure was.
president of the university. Cam Scattaboo ran that place. I mean, once that team took off, what Scattaboo said, people did, and I think he had a certain command on that locker room that is special, and that's why that season was special. I think that's something that Sam learned and started to grow into a little bit this year is how to lead a little bit, how to be vocal, when to get on guys, when to lead by example, and all the ups and downs that this last ASU season was, I think will only help him in the future.
Yeah, so it seems like Sam, he's going to be in the spotlight at LSU big time, as you know, in the SEC, and of course with his coach Lane Kiffin, and he's the king of transfer portal. So Sam is right at the top of that list. So I guess it's probably good that he had to grow up by himself that one season without his running back, because at LSU, all the pressure will be on him to get that team to the college football playoff. That's what they brought in the new coach, and they brought in reportedly about a $4 million quarterback from Arizona State. So it's probably good that he had that year, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I definitely think he learned and grew a lot this last year. And I mean, that I think is the two big, I don't know if you want to call them question marks. The two things that I think LSU fans really want to see from Sam is one, if he lives up to the billing. Had the Heisman hype and everything, and then this year he was the, you know, the consensus, golden goose, if you will, in the transfer portal. LSU lands him. Now, how does he deal with another offseason of that pressure and everything again and those expectations? The flip side is, I don't think anyone entirely knows his health status. He will be able to be fully healthy at some point, but I mean, even from what I've read, Lane Kiffin is kind of tiptoed around. Is he going to be ready for spring ball? Is he going to do summer workouts? I mean, this was a
Right.
fairly serious foot injury that sidelined him, and he had to undergo surgery and everything. So this isn't your stereotypical, for ASU, for example, they bring Cutter Boley in from Kentucky, and
Yes.
talking with guys around the program, he's already leading the unorganized guys just going to a park throwing sessions and things like that. I don't know if Sam is able to do that necessarily right now, given his recovery from foot surgery, and when he will be able. I mean, he's around the team and stuff, I'm sure, but his health is going to be a big question mark, I think, as this process rolls on.
Last couple of minutes, Robbie. You mentioned Cutter Boley coming over from Kentucky. Arizona State, once again, scheduled an SEC team. They will play at Texas A&M. That series is 1-0 in favor of Texas A&M. They last played in 2015 in Houston, a neutral site game, I guess, if you could call it neutral site. But,
yeah, that really wasn't
30
neutral for ASU back then.
No, 38-17, right, for sure. Right, different stadium, not neutral site, though. But what do you see from this ASU team 2026, Robbie?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because much like all of college football, this is going to be a largely new roster again. Part of that by the fact of the amount of seniors that ASU had last year. They had to go in the transfer portal and rebuild this roster a little bit. But quarterback Cutter Boley, I had a chance to talk with him. They had like an informal media availability about a month ago when the transfers
Yes.
officially arrived on campus, and Cutter was great. He seemed super mature, excited to be here. So excited. And he's a big kid too, bigger than Sam.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what he does in this offense. And then, yeah, that Texas A&M game, it's difficult to go to College Station. And then from our understanding, they are going from college. I don't know if it's directly from College Station, but within a day of that, they're flying to London to play Kansas in a Big 12 game, the first Big 12 football game ever to be played in London. The Union Jack Classic is what they're calling it. It's going to be played at Wembley. I mean, we're already talking about the buildup for this. This is a huge game. It's a huge spotlight for the university and a huge showcase, nationally televised game. But it's going to be interesting. That's early in the season too. That's like week 3, 4. So if you're a coach and you want to get your team rolling in the right direction, you got to build some momentum quick before you hit that juggernaut.
Oh, yeah. Robbie, just quickly, maybe 15 seconds. How is they managing the NIL, Arizona State? Can they compete?
Yeah, they're competing. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. The quickest answer is Kenny Dillingham said they needed an 8-figure, type donation to build an indoor practice facility at the start of last season.
Yes.
Last week, they unveiled the renderings that practice facility. They got the one donor, did it, and they're getting some more fundraising, and they're building a brand new state-of-the-art indoor practice facility for the football team. So that's not necessarily NIL, but that goes to show you where the financial support is right now.
Very good, Robbie. Hey, Robby Baker, FOX10 sports anchor and reporter. He's the host and executive producer of Arizona State University All Access. Hey, Robby Baker, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We'll be right back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with AP as we see it, and very special guest, friend of the show, Paige Dauer. Paige is from Full Disclosure Productions, and she covers the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Welcome to AP as we see it again, Paige. So glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you, AP. It's good seeing you again. Had a good time for the SEC Media Days, and happy to be back on the program with you.
Oh, yeah, look forward to Tampa. There's something new this year.
Yes, should be a fun one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But as we look at these college football teams, Paige, we always concentrate on the quarterbacks on my show because they're so important, as I say, in the quarterback-centric era. So what can you tell the folks about Tennessee and the quarterback position for the 2026 season?
Well, it feels like each season at this point, it's changing day by day. It seems like I know a lot of ball fans were holding out on the hope that Joey Aguilar would be able to return for a second
Yes.
season in the orange and white, but the judge denied the injunction, and he's no longer a part of the team and will now turn his attention to his prospect when it comes to the NFL draft. So now that Joey Aguilar is out of the picture, you really return to the three main quarterbacks that are now within the Tennessee quarterback room, and I think it's starting and led by George McIntyre. He's going to be a sophomore this season, or a redshirt freshman, and then you have a true freshman in Faison Brandon, a five-star out of North Carolina, who I think a lot of fans are ready to get him going right away. So I think the quarterback battle will maybe be between those two, but of course you also have a veteran transfer out of the spring portal, or I guess winter portal. They don't have the spring portal anymore. And Ryan Saab from Colorado. And I think what you see on tape with Ryan is he's pretty good at, scrambling. He can go off script a little bit, and, he has a decent arm too. But I think when you're looking at those three, they all bring three very different things to the table. What I like most about what we're seeing in the quarterback room for Tennessee, though, is you don't have that spring portal window, right? So now you have some certainty that whatever happened last year with Nico Imaliava, you're not going to be one day randomly without your starting quarterback. You can now press forward, getting ready for spring practice after spring break starts, to really start figuring out who your starting quarterback is going to be for the 2026 season. And AP, I'm kind of thinking I want it to be George McIntyre, but I know that there's so much concern when it comes to his weight. But Tennessee added in a new strength coach, a new nutrition team, so hopefully they can personalize something for George, where maybe he can put on another 5 or 10 pounds and be a typical weight that you see amongst SEC quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's very tall, rail thin, about 6'6", listed 195. Hopefully, maybe he can get to 215 maybe by the season, something like that, because that's extremely thin and being so tall.
Yeah, it is. And you can go back. I know I had mentioned Nico Imaliava just a moment ago, but George is a little taller and a little lighter than Nico, and Nico was pretty thin for his size. But I'm reminded of, and I think I talked about it on my channel a couple of weeks ago, but Rick Barnes, the Tennessee basketball head coach, would always describe Cade Phillips, who's like 6'9" and maybe about 200 pounds, as being like farm strong. And maybe that's just who George is. Maybe he's somebody who really can't put on a ton of weight, but he's really strong for how he looks. And maybe that's just the build he'll have. But you look to all the sacks that Joey took last year. It's just, from a safety perspective, truly about wanting George just to put on a little bit more size so he can handle the inevitable sacks that he'll get this season. But yeah, if he can put on those 10, 15 pounds, I think it'll be good. The size he is now, you can go, AP, and look at the spring and fall game, or the spring game, I think it was, and the bit of time that he had in those non-conference games a season ago. He has a strong arm. He's a good decision maker, and he doesn't mind kind of getting out of the pocket and stretching it downfield. So I think those intangibles, honestly, AP, will probably go a long way into him having a leg up on the competition within the room.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Cade Phillips, his daddy was John David Phillips, right? Played at Alabama. He was about 6'5" himself. He sure was. And his mother was a basketball player, Reagan Crowe, I believe. So he has some height. But yeah, that's nice to know about George. And then we know he's a legacy college football player. His granddad was a coach of Vanderbilt, and his uncle Mike was at, I think, Vanderbilt, Colorado, and San Jose State, I think you mentioned as well. So he has a lot of football knowledge. He's been around the game since he was young. And how is he as a leader, Paige, even though he's not a starter? As his personality, would you say? What's his personality?
Yeah, AP, that was a great question, because what I think coaches often look for, specifically in the offseason, is how will the young guys take the reins to be the leader? Do they have that moxie? Do they have that drive and motivation to kind of take the reins of the team? And truly, I think that's what he exemplified early into the offseason once they were in winter break, which at Tennessee, it's like, feels like it's 8 weeks long. They have a mini term, so they're gone for forever, which is pretty abnormal to my college experience, and having just your standard 4 weeks. And that time was really beneficial for George McIntyre, who he took, the core wide receiver group, and Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, a couple of the young guys, or Darius Jackson. I don't know if he was there, but Travis Smith Jr. was there, and he took a tight end and Deshaun Brame, and maybe somebody else. They all went down to Miami and they took some pictures of themselves. They got in some work together, some one-on-one time with the QB and wide receivers. And then they were on the boat together and just, really doing some good bonding time. So even if there wasn't a ton of, reps that were taken on the field per se, his ability to probably orchestrate this trip, take everybody down there, operate like you are this QB1, which is what we saw Nico do with Mike Matthews out in California a season ago, I think probably goes a long way to the coaching staff having confidence in George when it comes to his leadership and also the buy-in that his teammates have in him, even though, like you say, he was, third on the depth chart behind Jake Merklinger, who transferred and I believe now is at UConn. That's a huge step for him to take, going from presumably third string last year to is he going to be the starter this season? So I think the team really responded to that. And I think, it's a huge compliment to the work that he's put in behind the scenes in his first year at Tennessee. And hopefully it's something that can continue to pay off as they get ready for spring ball.
Right. Yeah, I think you'd have to be disappointed maybe if George wasn't the starter because he's been there. He has talent and he's from a football family. So what about Faison Brandon? What can you say about him, Paige?
Well, he's certainly he's another 5-star prospect that's coming down Tennessee's way after they were able to get Nico Imaliava a couple of seasons ago out of California. This time it's in what has turned into their backyard, which is North Carolina. Tennessee does quite well over there. Obviously, you can remember their tackle and David Sanders Jr. and what he was able to do. And I think there's I know that there's a lot of hype behind Faison Brandon and what Vol fans are really hoping he becomes. He has the size, he has the strength. I think he's shown, especially on the high school tape, the IQ to make smart plays. And now that he's enrolled early to the team too, I think that has turned into a completely new concept the last handful of years, really, where players are able to just gain so much more knowledge at the AP that they don't get to travel in full prep like they were able to do several seasons ago or even a couple of seasons ago. So maybe you lose a little bit of that knowledge, not getting that kind of experience. But as far as what he brings just from, his arm, being able to scramble, his size, and just obviously the 5-star billing that he has, I think fans want to see that right away. It's just not very common to see true freshmen start in the SEC anymore. I know you being down there in Alabama, I think Nick Saban did that with Tua and Jalen Hurts, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was Bryce Young, but they played young players before. I'm not sure how common it is now that a lot of universities look for the transfer portal to get a veteran quarterback, which obviously Tennessee did a season ago. And Nico sat for, 2 or so years before it was his time. But I would imagine because of that, Faison sits a year and then maybe plays next year. And that's kind of why I'm thinking, this is really George's time to start, because Faison's not going to stay on the sidelines for very long.
No, for sure. Yeah, Jalen Hurts, he was the starter. Tua pulled him out in that championship game as a freshman. So, but it's very rare that you place that on somebody. And Jalen Hurts ended up being the MVP of the league offensively, but I always tell people he had 15 touchdowns in his pocket because they had 15 defensive touchdowns, punt returns, those types of things. So that's nice as a freshman to have 15 touchdowns in your pocket before you have to put points on the board. But anyway, we're speaking with Paige Dauer of Full Disclosure Productions. Paige, can you tell the folks in our audience how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of our content is housed on our YouTube channel at Full Disclosure Pro. We also have a website, fulldisclosurepro.com, for more up-to-date stuff. But if you want more behind the scenes, of course, I'm also on social media. My handle is the same across all platforms at Paige Dauer, Dauer FDP.
Paige, we have about a minute in this segment. How did you, I don't know if this is a long story or a short one, but how did you have this passion for sports?
It started when I was young. I'm from the Cincinnati area, but my dad is from the Boston area, and I'm the firstborn. And he and my mom were like, "You're not going to go watch your reality TV on Sundays. I want you to watch the Patriots with us on Sunday." And of course, that's when Tom Brady was there, and Aaron Andrews was sideline reporting. I fell in love with sports that first day, and our high school offered kind of a news broadcasting class, so fell in love with it right away and went to school for sports journalism after that. But really just started with family bonding. So I've always had a good experience, and the Patriots were always winning when I was younger. So I had good experiences with the sports. And then I moved here in 2022, and Tennessee athletics has been on fire these last couple of seasons. So I've been pretty blessed. But yeah, started young when I was with my family, from an athletic family, and it's just transpired itself into sports reporting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to be right back with another segment with Paige Dauer of Full Disclosure Productions. So we'll be right back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with the final segment of AP as we see it, and our very special guest and friend of the show, Paige Dauer of Full Disclosure Productions. She covers the University of Tennessee athletics, and we were discussing the quarterbacks page. So I wanted to bring up the fact that I think one of the significant hires of the offseason was by the Tennessee Volunteers head coach Josh Heupel. He's bringing in the defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who led Ohio State to a championship, then moved on to Penn State for about, I think it was $3 million a year, something like that. But he's a new defensive coordinator. And what have you learned about him, and what could you tell our audience about Jim Knowles, the new defensive coordinator for the Volunteers?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around the program and the refreshed approach that they have, within the coaching staff. I know we had mentioned in the last segment the new strength and conditioning coach, new nutritionist, and now they pretty much have an entirely new defensive staff. Of course, here, spearheaded by Jim Knowles. You have Anthony Poindexter on there as well. I think they have a new safeties coach. They bring back William Minch. You bring back their line coach and Coach Gardner, who this team absolutely loved, Rodney Gardner. So it was good that they were able to retain him. But in the areas where they were weak, in the secondary and in their physicality, and sometimes even in their defensive line, I think they went and got coaches who would bring back that physical toughness that Tennessee is really known for. Josh Heupel went viral a couple of seasons ago talking about, all of the great Tennessee defensive players who have come through the university and wanting to get back to what that was. And going and initially learning about Jim Knowles, I think it's immediate excitement. Of course, there's also met with some hesitancy because everyone talks about how complex his defense is, and it always takes a year to install before you can really get going in the second year. But I think what will help Tennessee not have such a lag period in getting to that second year of installment is the amount of Penn State players who transferred to Tennessee here in this offseason, especially led by Chaz Coleman. So having guys that are familiar with the Jim Knowles-led defense, also with Anthony Poindexter, who comes over from Penn State, I think is going to go a really long way for this team to be able to hit that ground running. You could even tell how much this team is maybe enjoying this 2026 iteration because of the types of hype reels that the university is putting out on their social media platforms, which I don't know if they're just better edited or if they didn't do them last year, but they're certainly catching my attention. But as far as the personality of Jim Knowles goes, AP, it's just he seems like a hard-nosed kind of guy. He talks about how he's from Philly, so he's got that physical trait to him, but that he loves his players and his players love him. And he's always going to kind of go with the level of comfort that his players has. He says that's one area where I've learned to be a better coach is I want to install all of this, but if the guys aren't getting it on the practice field, I need to reel something back in. I need to find another way to help install this, defensive structure so that come game time, they can be more successful. And also because of that, I think that'll allow them to not have this year one so complex and, it always takes a dip before it rises. I think hopefully it looks more like the Ohio State defense that Tennessee would like to forget about than it did like the Penn State defense.
Right. So he has a practical approach. I like that about a coach who understands his talent, and he doesn't want to overwhelm them, as you said, with the implementation of a complex system. What do the fans feel about Josh Heupel, Paige, right now? I mean, he made the playoffs a couple of years ago. They didn't perform well on the road at Ohio State, as you mentioned. But what do they feel about him right now?
Yeah, I mean, Vol fans sometimes feel like, a term I've learned since moving here in 2022 is battered Vol syndrome. I think a lot of the times either they think they have the short end of the stick or, things don't last as long as they should. So I guess that goes in part of saying, everything that kind of happened last year with Nico departing, and then they're like, who's our quarterback going to be? Who's this Joey? Yeah, you are kid. Okay, it's really good. We have this great season. We look so good against Georgia, but just narrowly lost it to, okay, we could be a college football playoff team. And I was like, okay, maybe a New Year's Six bowl game. And then you're in the Music City bowl game. So it ends kind of on a dampering kind of note. So it went from Josh has this really long leash to now I kind of get a vibe that he might be on the warm seat in 2026. I don't think it'll be hot because there's just been so many issues with the quarterback. And I know you love talking about quarterbacks here and having a new quarterback every single season. And, really now kind of having your homegrown kid who hopefully will stay here and Faison Brandon or in George McIntyre. Hopefully that will start to build some stability. But they need to be a 9-10 win season in 2026 for Josh Heupel to keep the belief and the loyalty of the fan base, to keep people happy, to continue to build momentum on the caliber of recruiting classes he's been able to get both in high school and in the transfer portal, to keep the caliber of coaches that they have on staff. It needs to be a 9-10 win season. If not, I think he's going to start losing the buy-in from the fan base. Again, that long leash, you've had, all this turnover, you had NCAA restrictions that weren't your fault, right? Like there's a lot that the team has had to overcome since he arrived on Rocky Top in 2022. And for the most part, as far as Vol fans go, from my experience with them, they've been pretty understandable about their football team. But I think as you enter, 5-6 seasons, it's like, okay, who is Josh Heupel, and is he going to be this coach that can still have a high octane offense? Can he still be explosive? Does his team shrink in the final minutes of games, or will he still be aggressive? Because I think that's the main thing that started to raise some concerns with this fan base, and why I also think he's going to be on the warm seat in 2026 is the play calling was so different in the final minutes of both first halves and second halves, where the team really shrunk from a play calling perspective. I don't know if the team was really ever put in the best positions to win. You can think about that Georgia game. Unfortunately, they missed those field goals. And it's just, I don't know if I need to go and watch film again, but I can just remember the feelings of like, okay, he's calling this game differently now. And I'm not sure if it's him and how much of that play calling duty he has, but he certainly likes to be the play caller. So I don't know if his role will change in that regard, if he really will give it to Joey Halzle, who's the offensive coordinator, to allow him to be more of the play caller so this team can have more success down the stretch. Because there's just so much to manage as the head coach, on top of the play calling. So I think they need to get back to having a more explosive offense. I think their defense will be just fine. It saved them in several seasons now. I think they'll be able to get to 9 wins. They need to get to 9 wins, and hopefully they get a nice, postseason. But now, that the SEC schedule is different. You don't have really any non-conference games. Does he get a longer leash again because it's a completely different ball game in 2026? So I don't know, AP, we will see. But I think for the most part, everybody loves what he's been able to give Tennessee, and putting the football team back on the map has been an incredible feat in and of itself.
Yeah, I think that was a smart hire with Jim Knowles. He's credible defensive coordinator. I think he probably can recruit some players by flashing that Ohio State ring, and he rallies his troops. So they play at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. That's a big game for them on non-conference. As you mentioned, 9 games this year in the SEC. So we shall see. But to keep that temperature moderate, as you said, you want to win those 9 games and get into those playoffs. And I think the Tennessee fans, historically, I think they would accept that from Josh Heupel, be in contention and play well in the college football playoffs as well. Not lose by 25 points on the road. I think that probably needs to change as well. But anyhow, Paige, we're going to look at some basketball here. Rick Barnes last night, as we speak, lost to Missouri on the road. But right now they're sitting, looks like an NCAA berth again. Their record right now is 20-8 and 10-5 in the conference, I believe. So what would you like to tell people, our audience, about the Tennessee men's basketball?
They just have to find a way to get out of their own way. I mean, they've looked so good these last handful of games, especially when you come to the turnover margin. They've had 3 straight games of double or single-digit turnovers, which is such a sign of improvement and execution in the Department of Discipline. And then they just lose it against Missouri. They had 7 first-half turnovers, 5 of which came in like a span of 3 minutes. They end with 15 turnovers, and the dagger really in this game was one of the final possessions for Tennessee to have a chance to tie it, I believe. And Jacoby Gillespie wants a high percentage shot. He's, driving to the rim, and as he's bringing the ball up, Missouri is able to swipe it away, and it's the 15th turnover of the game, and again, all but ices it. Rick Barnes was really frustrated after the game. He's like, I really thought we had grown from that, and now we're back to where we were a month ago when we're averaging 12, 13, 14 turnovers a game. I also was surprised that Missouri was able to force Tennessee to play in a different style of offense than where they've had success. Missouri is a really tall team. They have a couple of players that are 7+ feet tall, and that forced Tennessee to play away from the rim instead of attacking in the paint, where they've had so much success here in the SEC. As they get ready for Alabama, they absolutely have to find a way to, I would say, get better in transition, expose Alabama's weak defense. And then they need to continue to rebound the way that they have. I mean, they're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. That saved them a lot this season. So I think if they can get better on limiting turnovers, but then get back to where they are really strong, hopefully they bounce back. I think it's new for Tennessee, who got really comfortable having a 2 seed these last 2 seasons in the NCAA tournament. And now you're looking at a 5 seed potentially with the way things have gone. So they certainly need to win out and have a good SEC tournament so that they can have a more desirable path, let's say, in the NCAA tournament.
Hey, Paige, we want to thank you so much. We really enjoyed our conversation about Tennessee athletics, football, and basketball, men's basketball programs. And we'd like to thank Paige Dauer of Full Disclosure Productions. And that's the end of our show this week for AP As We See It. And we'll be back next week with another episode of AP As We See It. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.